So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn, and I'm going to introduce you to the system I'm using now to keep deer away from my trees, my bird feeders, and my valuable bushes and holly and things like that. This is the wireless deer fence, and it has a bait system, and it has an educational static charge that comes with it. And I've got the big box here of perfumed plastic resin bait. I have to say something about these little resin tubes, by the way. They didn't seem to really draw the deer into them. Keep in mind it's wintertime. Today is February the 17th of 2026. There's the website, wirelessdeerfence.com. I got 3 boxes of these, and they come 3 to a box. And the system is pretty interesting to me because it was developed by a doctor of veterinary medicine who is a behaviorist, by the way. So that means that, like me, he spent a lot of time looking at the behavior of animals and decided to create this system which can train deer through a static discharge to avoid areas that you designate. Ask for the Frederick Dunn discount. You'll probably just pay the same as everyone else, but it can't hurt to ask. There's the information for the website. And it may be discharged by heavy rain, ice, and so on. Today is February the 17th of 2026. It has been through rain and snow, and I've tested this for several weeks. So if you want to jump ahead and see the practical testing, it's at 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Otherwise, I'm going over the stuff that comes in the box. And of course, we're going to start off with the bait, which, by the way, it says on the packet, don't touch this with your bare hands, but I did it anyway. Wash your hands afterwards. This has a unique smell. It's not like anything I've ever smelled before. But these little tubes are, of course, impregnated with the scent, and then it slow releases. And each one of these is good for about a month, according to the instructions. That's why I have the big bin of it, and it comes with this little screwdriver tool. It's really just like a screw. You twist it into the bait, and then you push the bait onto this little center post. And once you put it on there, you turn it counterclockwise and remove the little screw set device there. Now, this does not have batteries in it yet, so there's no static charge, so I can't get zapped. However, you should know that once you do put your AA batteries in there, and I'm going to show you how, this thing will develop a charge, and then if you touch any of the 2 adjacent prods there, you're going to get a zap. So here it is, fully baited. And I put the bait back in a little pouch. It says to store it in a cool, dry place, so I guess I don't have to put it in a freezer. And of course, I have to recommend nitrile gloves. These are nice, thick nitrile gloves, by the way, if you don't want to get that on your hands. But I suffered no irritation to my skin and so on, but I did wash my hands. Now, Energizer batteries, Energizer lithiums specifically. These are the best cold weather performing batteries. They also have a super long shelf life, and I'm going to show you how to determine that. By the way, they're good for minus 40 C to minus 60 C and minus 40 Fahrenheit as well. And these are good until December of 2050. So, and that's on the battery itself. You're not going to see the expiration date on the boxes. And then we're going to put them in. So this is the housing for your batteries. It has a space for 2 AA's, of course, and the spring side is where the negative side of your battery goes. That's almost always the case when you're putting stuff together. And these will last a long time. It says about 6 months of continuous use, but continuous use means it's out there ready to deliver a little electrical shock to the deer. I suppose you could use them up quicker if something were triggering them constantly, but you know what? Getting the deer to interact with these things is not easy, and I'm going to show you that. There's a little capacitor in there, so it builds up a static charge in the capacitor, and there's a double O-ring there that keeps this sealed out from the weather. The entire housing is non-conductive, so you don't have to worry about that zapping anything, but here's the deal. You don't have to be grounded to make these things trigger. I'm just giving you a close look at the capacitor here. So once the capacitor takes its charge and fills up, it's ready to deliver a static charge, and once it does that, it can take up to an hour to build full charge again. So you're not going to get zaps in rapid succession. And also, I'm just testing now that I have the batteries in and it's charged up for an hour. I want to see if when I put this in with my nitrile gloves, if I can generate a static shock, and it doesn't. So even these thin nitrile gloves prevent it from delivering the shock. And if you touch these opposing, like every other one together, there's no connection made. But the ones that are side by side, that's when you get the discharge. So, and discharges without being grounded. I don't know if I mentioned that already. Talks about placement here. I have very specific placement where I'm going to put these things. And I'm going to put them around our bird feeders. I'm going to put them by my holly bushes. I'm going to even put them by cedar trees that are being munched by the deer. Here's how it works. There it is. And if you touch two adjacent ones, they snap. So it grounds itself. It closes the circuit. You don't have to be standing on the ground, for example. What if a bird landed on it? The birds don't really land on them. And of course, you notice that's a weaker discharge. That's because it's only about 15 minutes after the first one. Here is our class of animals that need education. These are white-tailed deer in the state of Pennsylvania, northwestern part of the state of Pennsylvania specifically. They're everywhere. I understand. They need to have somewhere to go. I'm just going to make sure they don't go where I don't want them to be. And that is next to the feeder, next to the holly bushes, and in my lower apiary where we keep honeybees, by the way. So there's deep snow. That's another thing I noticed. They do work. It doesn't matter if it's really cold outside. But as the snow melts away, you need to get out there and make sure that you set them up again because they can start to lean over. They're not very tall. And we want this end to be about, deer sniff height. We want them to touch it with their nose. That's when they get the full benefit of it and take off. So I also found out sticking them at different angles was interesting to the deer, and you could arouse their curiosity. So I have this building here, and there's a tiny opening between the gate and the building, and the deer have been just passing through there. Then they end up bedding down in my apiary. What's that? That's where you keep honeybees. See the little prods right at the bottom there? This deer is checking it out. That looks new. They're not sure that that's too cool. And here's the other thing. I don't think the bait does a lot, at least in wintertime, to get their curiosity because they seem to just wait until they're right up on it. So there's no concern that the bait is drawing them in from somewhere else. They're not sniffing or paying attention to these things unless they're right there. Now here's an example of the deer out where I don't mind them being. I have deer everywhere. Look at the tracks in the snow. We have herds of white-tailed deer here. So it would be not practical to get a whole bunch of these and try to kind of drive them away from all of your property everywhere. So you're going to have to pick targeted plants, targeted trees, maybe that have just started out. I'm going to spread out more because I'm going to get more of these. And deer startle easy. Did you notice that? One deer gets spooked and runs away. All the deer kind of get spooked and run away. Therefore, not every one of the deer has to make contact with one of these wireless electric fence prods. They just need to be in proximity of one another when one of them has a bad experience. Something they don't understand will cause avoidance. So here we are at the bird feeder. This is not a youngster. This deer is a professional. This deer comes in and even loud flashing lights and audible alarms go off, and this deer does not care. It stands right there. Floodlights come on. It doesn't care. Stands right there. And if you'll notice, there are the wireless deer fence prods sitting down there. One is at an angle because I went out there and stuffed it in the snow. I wanted it right by the deer's face. And the deer walked around it, worked around it, didn't touch it. We need them to make contact like that. Now that one made contact, snapped its nose, and it came right into the fenced area. That's not the end of the world because they can actually jump the fence anyway. That was just part of my test unit. And notice it also has a floodlight. They don't care about the floodlight. But once they've been snapped with static, even though this is a high traffic area for the deer, they've been coming here habitually, so it's important to know that too. The deer are already using this area. And they've been frequenting the area, which means that they've found food and resources. So to change that behavior, you have a lot to override. Now here's an example of the deer walking on their hind feet and getting food where I don't mind they get it. See, this is a good, 100 yards from where I've set these prods. And deer are very competitive with one another. Here's a small group. And here we are back at the feeder. Now look, I put that probe at an angle. Screen low left there. It's basically aiming right at the deer's head. The deer doesn't even touch it. So she walked in there and then works around it. Now we have the deer showing up on the inside of this fenced area and they see the prods and run away. And then new deer come along, and if they don't have witnesses, they have to experience it for themselves too. So each deer, unless they're in the company of another deer that gets motivated, they need to, of course, test it themselves. So what I'm saying is, this is not an immediate fix. It takes a while. The deer need to be around and, number one, recognize the scent, see what they look like, and they start to avoid the areas where you've placed these wireless fence prods. Now look, here's two together. Oh, got snapped on the nose. There's 3 deer there, by the way, 2 running away. And see, she's using her hind foot. She's like, what was that? And then she goes over and chews on one of the picnic tables for a little while. But guess what? She never came back. And I don't know if that's a she or a he, but this particular deer, see, this is before I put the prods in, just to show you what I was overcoming. This deer came to these bird feeders routinely, dug through the snow to get food, doesn't care about audible alarms. So even when the flashing lights go, even when floodlights come on, these deer are tough customers. They know that there's food and resources, except that one there is still afraid of that entrance for some reason. But they come back no matter what. So this was a ditch effort for me. This was a final stand, so to speak. And here's the one over by a cedar tree. You wouldn't think that deer would eat cedar trees, but they do. And some people think cedar, that's a scrub anyway, but not this one. It's near my house. I don't want them chewing everything apart. So I want it to touch its nose and do that. Go away. Now, they don't run for a long distance. If you notice, it ran about 50 feet away and stopped and looks back. They don't understand what's going on. They don't get it. So that mystery is what we're going to capitalize on. And here we are again at that lower entrance. We just want to make sure that these deer stay away from wherever we happen to put them. See, I changed the prods too. I think it's important to move them around to different locations since you can just stick them in the ground. I also found that sticking them at different angles gets deer interest, which is kind of fun. And like, they're just cautious in general. Now, these are wild deer. These aren't city deer. You may have your work cut out for you in your backyard garden in urban America. But wherever they encounter one of these probes, they don't want to do it twice. Like that. And this deer, man, that's frustrating. So that one came back time and again, but I will tell you this. After the final touch on the nose, that deer came and has not been back since. And that's why I waited several weeks before I put this video out, because I wanted to make sure that they do indeed work. I can't speak to the longevity. I can't say that the batteries last 6 months. I can't say that the bait is really drawing their attention that much. But maybe in summertime or in spring, when deer are sniffing different things, maybe the bait is better seasonally, because of course when it's really cold, like 10 degrees outside, the bait scent doesn't necessarily go out into the air the way it will in spring. But what I'm going to tell you now is they work. I absolutely ran them through my testing here, and I'm convinced this is a great thing. So as we wrap up today's review and this demonstration, it's worth taking a moment to look at the vision behind this technology. We're not looking at just a clever gadget. We're seeing the life's work of Dr. Keith Betzen. And he's the veterinarian and the inventor who developed the wireless deer fence. So as a doctor of veterinary medicine, Dr. Betzen brought a unique perspective to this challenge. He didn't just see a pest. He saw an animal he respected, and he used his deep understanding of animal behavior to create a precise psychological trigger that effectively trains the deer to stay away. It's an elegant solution, and our select plantings and feeders remain intact while the deer are safely rerouted, remaining wild and uninjured. So following Dr. Betzen's passing, his family has stepped up to carry his legacy forward, and they're ensuring that his commitment to a peaceful, harm-free coexistence with nature continues. So as you see, the system is working, and it will work on your property. Remember the care, the science, and the family tradition that stands behind it. And I want to thank you for watching. I'm Frederick Dunn, and I wish you all the best as you work to educate the wildlife in your neck of the woods.